श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम। ओम सुखम नित्यं स्वप्रकाशं व्यापकं नाम रूपयोः अधिष्ठानं बुद्ध्यबोध्यं बुद्धेर्दृग्यत्तु निर्मलम् अपारं सर्ववेदान्त वेद्यं प्रत्यक्परं महः तदेवाहं न मत्तोऽन्यत् इति मे निश्चिता मतिः। So we are seeing atra drishtantah. We saw there are two portions when the thought function objectifies the pot, etc. One portion is the portion of thought function. The other portion is the consciousness. The thought portion removes the veiling and the consciousness illumines the object. It engulfs it. Okay. So, for this, he is giving an example. Atra drishtantah. 203. Atra drishtantah. Example for this. Tamasi mridbhandena kenachit mrunmayam lohamayam va kinchit vastu samvritam aste. Tamasi, in darkness, mridbhandena kenachit mrunmayam lohamayam va kinchit vastu samvritam aste. Some object, whether it is made of clay or made of iron, it is veiled by the darkness. It is covered by the darkness. You don't know what it is. Now, tatra dandadina mridbande avarane bhagne api vina tu deepadi prakaram tad antastham vastu na prakashate. It has something. So, you have a stick, tick, 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 like that. You start hitting it. You find something. Oh, there is an object here. Though you know there is an object, you don't know what that object is. Though the existence of the object is perceived, the object itself is not perceived. Why? Because there is no pramana for the object. What is the pramana? He says, Deepadi prakasham vina tu tadantastam vastu na prakashate. Without the light, the object in that will not be illumined. What exists in that pot? What exists in that clay pot or iron pot? You can't see. Apitu deepadine prakashate. Only through light it is effulgent. It is illumined. Okay. Tatha. Now example. Darkness, pot, stick, eyesight. Now he says, तथा अज्ञान आवृत घटादेहे विषयस्य आवरणे वृत्त्या विनाशिते अपि. So similarly, by the ignorance, the object, pot, etc. is veiled. Now, through the vritti, stick, though the avarana, the veiling is removed, we know it is, there is a pot, there is an object, we know that. But still, eyesight is not there, which is na ghatadi rupa vishaya prakashate. The object, pot, etc. is not illumined. Like the eyesight there, here we need the effulgence. What is the effulgence? Well, we have thought function, right? So he says, yato ghatadi vishaya jadaha vrittirapi jadaha. The thought function does not illumine the object. You have to understand that the thought function cannot illumine the object. Why? The pot is inert. Similarly, the thought function is also inert. Inert cannot illumine another inert. Tasyaha vishaya avarana nivritti matram prayojanam. Then what is the use of using this inert? This inert thought function removes the veiling of the pot. That is the only utility, nothing else. Then how do I understand? Natuanaya vishaya prakasho jayate. The object is not illumined by the thought function. Tasmad ghatadi vishaya avbhasako vrittistha chidabhasa eva. Therefore, the pot is illumined only by the chidabhasa, the reflection consciousness associated with the thought. So thought function removes the veiling, the consciousness associated with the thought function illumines the object. Simple. Chakshuradi चक्षुरिंद्रिय गोचर वस्तु प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञान पूर्वोक्त क्रमेण जायते. So the object that is perceived through the sense organ of sight takes place like this. You have eyes, the thought function, the mind transforms into thought function, it travels externally to the object, the thought function hits the object, removes the veiling, the consciousness illumines the object. That is how we see the object. Is it the same for the ear? The sense organ travels through the ear. Yes, it can do that. The sense organ travels through the nose. No. The sense organ travels through the ear or the object comes to the ear. There are two different schools in this. Some people say the sense organ travels through the ear and reaches the object where the sound is made. So the other people say, no, the sound travels to your ears. So there are different schools. So he says, Shrotradi Indriya Gochara Padartha Pratyaksha Jnana api Ithameva Jayate iti Vijnana. This for us Vedantins, the knowledge gained to the sense organ of hearing also is similar. The mind travels through the sense organ of hearing to the object and grasps it. Why I am saying this? The logicians accept it in a different way. Object, when the sense organ is associated with the object, the sense organ of seeing, if it's associated with the object, the knowledge takes place. There is no problem there. But with respect to the ear, they accept two different systems. One is, they give an example, Kadamba Mukula Nyayena or Vichi Taranga Nyaya. They give two logic. How the sound travels. The sense organ, the mind does not travel through the sense organ. Thought function does not travel through the ears. But the sound wave travels to the ears. There are two logics. One is two examples given to explain that. One is Kadamba Mukula, the petals of the flower. Like the petals of the flower, when it blooms, it spreads. Similarly, sound is produced in one area, it spreads in all the directions. And there is another example, Vichi Taranganyaya. Like you have a pond, you throw a stone, or you have a bucket of water, you throw a stone in the middle. What happens? The waves form. Like that, the sound wave travels to different directions. Two logics they give to explain that, but we don't accept them. We say the thought function travels through the sense organ of hearing to the place of object. To the place of object. That is why if your sense organ is not, see, what is the difference? Whether the object comes here or I go to the object. The same thing. No. I make this sound. Some people will be like, they didn't hear it. I made a sound. Not everyone hears it with the same intensity. If the sound is made and if it travels through the sense organ, it should reach your ears, then you should hear, everyone should hear the same sound, same intensity. Then we'll say, the logicians will say, no. There is a sense organ which is sitting in the golaka, in the earlobe. That is how powerful that is. According to it, you receive the sound, etc. So that is the logic they will give. But simple. Our thought function travels to the sense organ of hearing. The capacity of the thought function to reach whichever place, that is the amount the sound is received. If the thought function does not have that much of capacity, because the sense organ is weaker, it does not have the capacity because it is aided by the sense organ. The thought function travels through the sense organ, but it is aided by the sense organ. Without the sense organ functioning, the thought function cannot travel properly. So the sense organ is a channel through which this thought function travels. Otherwise, we will say, my eyes also is a eye. I can see, but I cannot see properly small characters. That is because the thought function is not channelized through the sense organ of hearing or seeing, because it is weaker. Okay. Now, so the sense organ of hearing also functions in the same way as sense organ of seeing. Now, vritti vishayo ekadeshastvatvat ghatagyanam pratyaksham iti uchyate. Now, the vritti, the thought function, and the object, they have the same form. Pot, the mind also takes the form of pot. Since they have the same form, we gain the knowledge of pot, and that is called as direct perception, pratyaksha. When the mind is of the same form as the object, then that is called as pratyaksha. Okay. अंतःकरण वृत्ति यदा घटादि विषयी सह संबंध अलाभात बहिर्निर्गमन अभावेन अंतरेव घटाकार भवति. Now, there is no pot. I say pot. Yes. Did you understand pot? Yes, of course I understood pot. The mind does not travel through the sense organ externally to grasp the pot. It traveled internally and saw the pot internally. The mind is of the form of pot. There also the mind transformed into pot. Does it qualify to be called as pratyaksha, direct perception? No. Why? The mind should transform. That is what is the logic, right? No. He says, tada jayamanam ghatadi jnanam paroksha jnanam. Here, the knowledge which takes place when the mind travels inside without the object and transforms in the form of pot, that is not direct perception, or it is indirect perception or mediate knowledge. When the object is there, when the mind travels to the sense organ and transforms into the object, it is called as immediate knowledge. When the the mind does not travel through the sense organ, the thought function does not travel through the sense organ, but transforms into the form of pot internally, that is called as mediate knowledge, indirect knowledge. That is called as aparoksha jnana. That is called as aparoksha jnana. This is called as paroksha jnana. Immediate knowledge, aparoksha jnana. Mediate knowledge, paroksha jnana. Pratyaksham or aparoksham, they are synonyms. Pratyaksha, aparoksha are synonyms for immediate knowledge. Paroksha is for mediate knowledge. Pratyaksha, aparoksha for immediate knowledge, and paroksha is for mediate knowledge. Now he says, ayam ghataha iti aparoksha jnanasya akaraha. What is the form of the thought function in the case of immediate knowledge and in the case of mediate knowledge? So he gives you abhinaya. He shows you, ayam ghataha, this is pot. This is pot. When the knowledge of this form, when the knowledge is of this form, this is pot, then that is called as immediate knowledge. Pratyaksha, direct perception. Ghato asti iti, sa ghataha iti. If the knowledge is of the form of a pot exists, that is pot. Then that is mediate knowledge, paroksha jnana. Okay. Now, we understood paroksha jnana and aparoksha jnana. We understood mediate knowledge and immediate knowledge with respect to pot. So, immediate knowledge is when the sense organ meets the sense object and the mind is transforming into the object, it is immediate knowledge. When the mind does not travel through the sense organ, that is called as mediate knowledge. Okay. Now, memory, recollection. You remember something. Remember a pot. What is it? Is it mediate or immediate? The mind transforms into the object. So there are two schools. Some people accept it as mediate, some people accept it as immediate. Now here we'll accept it as immediate. So he says smrtirapi paroksha jnanam eva. The smrti also is paroksha jnana. We'll see the immediate and immediate knowledge difference later. Here for explaining it, he says smrti is a mediate knowledge, recollection, memory is a mediate knowledge. तथापि स्मृति अनुभव आहित संस्कारजन्या अणुमित्यादि परोक्ष ज्ञानं तु प्रमाणजन्यमिति इयान् भेदः. So there are two kinds of paroksha jnana. One is smrti, the other is our imagination. Oh, it is spot, means spot should be like this. That recollection, that memory is also paroksha jnana. The difference is smrti, memory, recollection is gained through the past experience. Memory, recollection is gained through the past experience, previous experience, prior experience. Whatever you experienced before is what is remembered. That is why we have a concomitance. Yaya smrtihi sa sa anubhava purvika. Whatever is memory should have been experienced before. Only what you experience can be recollected. This is one form of paroksha jnana. The other form of paroksha jnana, with respect to the pot, etc., he says anuvityadi paroksha jnanam. The mediate knowledge in the form of inference. Inference also, see mountain, you see smoke, you infer there is fire. You don't see the fire. You infer the fire. Now, that is also mediate knowledge. That is not immediate knowledge. Though there is a concomitance of wherever there is smoke, there is fire, still you don't see the fire. Therefore, it is mediate. Therefore, he says the difference is the memory is also mediate. The inference is also mediate. Memory is generated by the previous experience, whereas this inference is generated by pramana, means of right knowledge. That is the difference. Memory is not generated by pramana, whereas your inference is generated by a pramana, inferential knowledge. Okay. Now, since we are discussing about pramana janya, what is pramana? We know pramana means of right knowledge. We know that. But what are the different pramanas? What are the different means of right knowledges? Because we say pramana means of right knowledge, pramana means of right knowledge. What is pramana? Pramakaranam pramanam. Pramanam means, the definition for pramanam is pramakaranam, pramayaha karanam. It is a means for right knowledge. That which is means for right knowledge is pramana. Very good. You are repeating the same thing. What is pramana? Eyes are pramana for seeing, ears are pramana for listening. Is that what you are talking about? No. They are sense organ perception. We are talking about pramana. They all fall in direct perception. The sense organ of hearing, seeing, touching, etc., they fall under direct perception. There are different other pramanas. So he says 204 to 209. Pramana prasangat pratyaksha anumana shabda upamana arthapatti anupalabdhi pramanani nirupyante. Since we have started the discussion on pramana, we are going to establish the different pramanas. What are the different pramanas? We Vedantins accept 6 types of pramana. Pratyaksha, immediate perception or direct perception. Anumana, inference. Shabda, verbal testimony. Arthapatti, postulation. Anuplabdhi, absence, and upamana, comparison. These are the 6 types of pramana which we accept. These are the 6 types of means of right knowledge which we Vedantins accept. That does not mean every philosopher accepts the same thing. What does that mean? So he says 204, Pratyaksha Pramanam, direct perception. Perception, simply put. Who accepts this? He says, Charvaka Matasthaha Pratyaksham Ekameva Pramanam Iti Angigurvanti. The people who follow the school of Charvaka. Charvaka means materialistic philosophy. Okay, they accept that there is only one Pratyaksha Pramana. If you see, it exists. If you don't see, it does not exist. Simple. Their funda is simple. If it exists, you have to be able to see it. You don't see the heaven, you don't see the hell, they don't exist. I don't see the God, he does not exist. Or she does not exist, does not really matter. I see you, I see me, I see the elements. That is all what it is. There is nothing other than the elements. But what a stupid logic you are talking about. This is the same thing which the scientists also say. But wait, table is also elemental. It's formed of elements, right? Stone, elements. Wall, element. Human being, element. Animals, elements. But how can the elements sometimes be inert and sometimes be sentient? That is not a big deal. It happens. How? Simple. We ate fresh grapes. That is the logic. The grapes, as such, how much soever you eat, does not give intoxication. But the same grape, when you let it to sour and make wine, it gives you intoxication. That is one example. Or sometimes these one odd examples are always there. Only if you have 2 or more examples, something can be established. Okay, I'll give you another example. Betel leaf, betel nut with lime. When you chew, betel leaf is green, lime is white, and the betel nut is brown. When you start chewing it, it produces a red color. None of them have red color. The mixture definitely does not bring red color. Externally, if you mix these 3, you will not get red color. But when you start chewing these 3, it produces red color. Similarly, here, some permutation and combination of the elements produce sentient beings. Some permutation combination produce inert beings. That's all. Very good logic. And they also say, Rinam krutva ghritam pibet. Basmi bhutasya dehasya punaraganam kutah. Rinam krutva means taking loan. Ghritam pibet, drink ghee. Clarified butter means something which is precious, costly. Don't worry. I have to pay back the loan, right? Don't worry. Why? Basmi bhutasya dehasya. When you are burnt, you turn into ash. How can ash come back? You are not phoenix. So don't worry about that. That is their logic. So they accept the Lokaitikas, the worldly people, the materialistic philosophers, they accept only the elements to be the cause. Whatever you see is what it is, nothing else. So they accept only Pratyaksha. 205 Anumana Pramanam. Some people accept inference also as a means of right knowledge. Why? Who are they? He says, Kanada, Sugata, Mata Anusarina. The logicians and the Buddhist. Dvitiyam anumanamapi pramanattvena angikuranti. They accept the second pramana called anumana, inference. They accept inferential knowledge as a means of right knowledge. How? Yes. Pratyakshasya eva ekasya pramanatva angikare. Tripti michhato bhojane pravrittirna syat. If I am going to accept only the pratyaksha, direct perception, I experience, therefore it is. I don't experience, therefore it is not. Then you will not be interested in eating again. I don't understand the logic. Simple. You eat food. What happens? We are satisfied. I'm talking about some people. So we are satisfied. Okay. Then the satisfaction is what is the cause for you eating again. If you are not satisfied the first time, why will we go and eat? So I ate before I was satisfied. Therefore, I will eat to satiate my hunger. Simple. This inference cannot be there if you only accept pratyaksha. You cannot go beyond. Your life will become hell actually if you don't accept inference. Inference is what makes everything smooth. So he says, Bhavi Bhojane, so he's explained the example. Bhavi Bhojane Tirti Nirupita Hetutvasya Pratyaksha Pramanajanya Pratyaksha Jnana Bhava. So the future food giving rise to the happiness or satisfaction cannot be gained through pratyaksha. Pratyaksha is immediate knowledge of immediate object association. When there is no object, you cannot have direct knowledge. So the future food, that which it will give me satisfaction, cannot be understood now. So I had a very good coffee. Let me have a coffee after 1 hour. I cannot think like that. So he's ataha. Therefore, he is giving you the syllogism. How a logic uses syllogism. So he says, Agami bhojanam tripti karanam. The future food is a cause for satisfaction. How do you know that? Bhojanata, because it is food. Means Purvanabhuta bhojanavata, like the food I ate in the morning, the future food also will give me satisfaction. Anywhere you accept, you use logic, similar logics. Iti anumanena पूर्वभोजने अनुभूतं यत् तृप्ति हेतुत्वं तद् भावि भोजने अपि ज्ञात्वा तृप्ति कामो भोजने प्रवर्तते इति वाच्यम्. So with this inference, with this syllogism which is inference, I understand the concomitance of food and satisfaction. Wherever there is food, there is satisfaction. With this concomitance, I pursue the future food also for that satisfaction. If you don't understand that concomitance, that connectivity between the cause and effect, you can never think that food will give me satisfaction. So he says, Tasmat Anumanavai Paramanam. Therefore, Anumana, inference, is also a means of right knowledge. Itham Kanala Sugata Matanusarinaha Pratyaksha Anumanam Cheti Dvayamapi Pramanatven Angikara. So the logicians as well as the Buddhists, they accept both the pramanas. It is not they only accept the inference, they also accept the pratyaksha, because remember this, we call it upajivi upajivaka. Pratyaksha is the lifeline, direct perception is the lifeline. Because of pratyaksha, all the other pramanas stay alive. I cannot infer if I don't use pratyaksha. There is smoke on the mountain. How do you know? I infer. You cannot say that. You have to see the smoke for the connection. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. That concomitance, you have to have pratyaksha jnana. So pratyaksha is base for all the other pramanas. Okay, so the logicians and the Buddhists, they accept both pratyaksha and anumana. So the worldly people, they accept only one pramana. The logicians and Buddhists, they accept two pramanas. Now the third pramana, Shabda Pramanam, 206, verbal testimony. Sankhya Shastra, Pranetru, Kapila Mata Anusarina tu, Trutiyam Shabdamapi Pramanatvena Angikuranti. The followers of Sankhya Shastra, which is written by Kapila, they accept verbal testimony also as another means of right knowledge. Why do we need to accept verbal testimony? Verbal testimony is of two types. Worldly verbal testimony, scriptural verbal testimony. Both. Vaidikam, Avedikam cha. Why? See, the scriptures, whatever they say, we accept it as true. But that does not cut the ice in the world. We trust some people and their words, because of which we gain the knowledge of the whatever. Therefore, that is also one important testimony, proof. How? Explain. He is giving an example. Tathahi. Deshantre kasit pratapita vrataha. So, this is the example. In a different city, somebody's father died. Okay. So, now somebody can call or inform. In the olden days, it is impossible. If it is in the next village, you will get it after 2 days. For the news to come to you, it is, if it is in the next city, then it is after 15 days probably. You don't get the immediate. Next city means it's, you don't even get it. You don't even know that your father had died, or your son had died, or somebody has died. Don't know that. How do you get the message? Some messenger or somebody who went to that village, he comes and tells, your father died. Don't bluff. Because you have to trust the messenger. That is important. So we call that trusted person as Apta. Apta, the word Apta means Yathartha Bhakta, a person who speaks as it is. He does not add or subtract. He just says whatever it is, as it is. So this fellow, one who says truth always, Kaschit tam vrittantam tatputraya achakhyau. So that fellow who speaks the truth, he went to that city, and after that he came to this village and told the son, oh, I'm sorry to say this. Did you hear the news? Your father died. This is a big problem actually. How do you convey or ask? One Swamiji, he died. Okay. That is the news. His disciple came from some other place. I asked him, how's he? I heard he is no more. Is it true? This fellow also does not know. So let us check. He immediately took the phone from a PCO. Then it was PCO, and started dialing the number. Then he started asking, is the Guruji dead? I said, Karikat, what are you? Are you stupid? What are you asking? We want to know, is the Guruji alive or dead, right? Is that how you ask? Ask about Guruji's health. How's he? How's everything? Then, if he is alive or dead, they will tell you. You don't ask, is the Guruji dead? So, this fellow, okay, how are things, everything? Okay, so fine. Then, I'm very sorry, your father. What? You didn't know that? Oh, okay. Your father died in this and this tithi, etc. He conveys the news. Now, aptavakyat putraha pitrumaranam nischinoti. If it is said by someone else, he will not trust. But it is from a person who speaks truth and he trusts him. Therefore, he determines that his father is no more. Tacha न स्यात् प्रत्यक्षानुमानात्मक प्रमाणद्वय मात्र अंगीकार. If you accept only direct perception and inference, this knowledge cannot be gained. And knowledge through verbal testimony cannot be gained. And that is apta is a worldly verbal testimony, scriptural verbal testimony. If you are going to perform the Jyotishtoma, then you will go to heaven. Jyotishtoma swargatamo yajeta. How do you know there is heaven or hell for that matter? My father told, my grandfather told, my great-grandfather told, someone told, someone told. You are going to say someone or other. How do they know? Did they go and visit? Oh, this is a nice place. I'll come back later. Or this is not a good place. No. No one who went there came back and reported, none. So how do you know that there is a hell or there is a heaven? We know it through scriptures. So scriptures are also valid verbal testimony. So tasmat kapila mata anusarinah pratyaksha anumana shabdatmakam trayamapi pramanattvena angikuruvanti. Therefore, the followers of Kapila, Sankhya, Yoga, they accept a pratyaksha anumana and shabda, direct perception, inference, and verbal testimony as a pramana. Okay. 207. Upamana pramanam. Comparison. Nyaya Shastra Prametru, Gautama Mata Anusarinaha. There are two schools of logic. Two Indian schools of logic. One is by Kanabuk, Kanada, which is Vaisheshika. The other is Nyaya by Gautama. Nyaya by Gautama, Vaisheshika by Kanada. Two schools of logic. They are similar logic. Okay. So, the logicians following the school of Nyaya, they say, what do they say? Chaturtham upamanamapi pramanatvena abhyavachanti. They accept the fourth pramana called comparison. Why do you need comparison? He says, Tatha. I'll explain what comparison is. Kaschit Gavaya Mrigam Ajana. Somebody who does not know what an oxen is. How an ox looks like. They don't know. Okay, you don't know what an oxen is? Fine. Kutasyat Aranyaka Purusha. Somebody who lives in forest or has the knowledge of forest animals. From him he hears. Gavayo go sadrushaha. Oxen is similar to your cow. Oxen is similar to your cow. When he hears that, iti shrutva, after hearing that, kadachit aranyam gatva. Some days later, he goes into forest. In the forest, yada gave mrigam pashyati, he sees this oxen. He does not know what it is. He sees this animal in front of him. And tada aranyaka purushoktam go sadrusho gavai iti vakyam tadartham cha smaranti. So he remembers the forest dweller. Earlier he said, Gavaya, oxen, looks like your bull. He remembers that. Oh, this is not a cow. But it looks like my cow. This is forest cow, this is oxen. He understands that. This cannot be pratyaksha. Though he sees, he cannot gain the knowledge. There, there are some movies or serials where you can see people like Terminator. He sees people and immediately says, okay, his size is this will fit me, this will not fit me, kind of, right? Or some movies where they say the person, okay, his glass will cost this much, his coat will cost this much, his shoes will cost this much, like that. So we don't immediately see anything like that. So when you see the object, there is no tag, okay, oxen. No. Then how do you understand this is oxen? So you have to, so pratyaksha cannot be means. Inference, I cannot infer without a prior knowledge. Okay. So verbal testimony alone cannot satisfy here, because you see the object also. Therefore, he says, after hearing that, whatever he heard, he remembers, and he applies that on this object entity in front of him and understand this is oxen. तादृश स्मरणानन्तरम् अयं गयवः इति ज्ञानं तस्य जायते. He gains that knowledge. तच्च ज्ञानं न स्यात् प्रत्यक्षादि प्रमाणत्रय मात्रम् अभ्युगम्य उपमान प्रमाणस्य अनभ्युगे. That knowledge of oxen cannot be gained if you are going to accept only in direct perception, inference, and verbal testimony without accepting the comparison. तस्माद् एतादृश विलक्षण ज्ञान हेतुभूतम् उपमान प्रमाणम् अंगीकुर्वन्ति गौतमानुसारेण. Therefore, this different kind of pramana called comparison is accepted by the followers of Gautama, logicians, Naiyayikas. Okay. So, first is a direct perception. You see, you hear, etc. Second is a inference. Whatever you see, with reference to that, you understand. Third is a verbal testimony. You don't see, you don't infer. You hear, you accept. Fourth is a comparison. You heard, you see, you infer, and understand. This is not inference actually. This is different from inference. To establish this to be different from inference, we say this. See, Kanada also is logician. Gautama is also a logician. Kanada also knows this comparison, but he includes that in inference. I infer, I see cow, something which similar to cow, so I infer that this is ox. I use a logic, a syllogism. But he says no. Gautama says no. That is different, this is different. Inference produces inferential knowledge. Comparison produces comparative knowledge. In Sanskrit, we say Anumana, Anumiti. Anumana is the means, Anumiti is the knowledge. Upamana is the means, Upamiti is the knowledge. Okay? Now, fifth pramana. 208, Arthapatti pramanam. Arthapatti means postulation. Purvamimamsaka Ekadeshi Bhatta Shishyah Prabhakarah Panchamim Arthapattim api Pramanatven Abhyavanchati. Who accepts this pramana? He is explaining that. The followers of Purvamimamsa, there are two schools of Purvamimamsa. One is a Bhatta. The other is Prabhakara. Kumarila Bhatta. That is Bhatta school. Okay. Kumarila Bhatta. That is called as Bhatta school. His own disciple called Prabhakara. His school is called as a Guru Mata. Though his disciple, his school is called as Guru school. So this follower of student of Bhatta called Prabhakara, he accepts fifth pramana called postulation. What does that mean? Postulation also, there are two kinds of postulation. Shrutarthapatti, Drishtarthapatti. He is just giving you Shrutarthapatti or Drishtarthapatti. What is that? We'll see both. First, what is said here, we'll see. Diva bhunjanasya purushasya pinattam drishtva ayam ratro bhunte iti nishchayo jayate. See, somebody is fat and healthy, but that person does not eat anything throughout the day. He does not eat, she does not eat anything throughout the day, but he is healthy and energetic. That, with that knowledge, not eating but healthy and energetic, with that connection we say, okay, he does not eat in the morning, night he eats. We gain the knowledge, he eats in the night. This is accepted as inference by the logicians. But this is not inference, this is a postulation. Because for inference, why it is not inference? Because you don't see any residue of food. Nothing. Room is clean. You don't see him eating. So inference needs a direct perception to connect to the inferred. Here you don't see anything. The room is squeaky clean. Therefore, it cannot be inference. So he says, Ratri bhojana mantra diva bhunjanasya pinatva anupatte. Because without eating in the night, a person who does not eat in the daytime cannot be healthy and energetic. Bhojanam pinatva hetu ityata pinatvam ratri bhojanasya karyam. And being healthy and energetic is caused by food. Therefore, we accept that food to be consumed in the night. Ratri bhojanam pinatvasya karanam. The night food is what is the cause for his fatness or healthiness. Tatra pinatvam upadyam ratri bhojan upadakam. Pinatva, the fatness, healthiness, energeticness is what is the effect which needs to be established. The cause is night food. Okay. Tathacha upadaka ratri bhojanasya jnanam prati karanibhutam bhuta pinatva rupa upadya jnanam arthapati pramanam. So whatever needs to be established, the night food, for that this fatness or energeticness is what is the cause. This knowledge is what is called as postulation. As I said, there are two postulations. One is Drishtarthapatti, the other is Shrutarthapatti. Drishtarthapatti means you see the person is hale and healthy, but he is not eating in the day. Therefore, you postulate that he eats in the night. Without that food, he cannot be hale and healthy. Though you don't see the food, you infer. That is why I have to say infer. This is postulation. If you see the packets of food, empty packets of food, then that is inference. You don't see anything, therefore this is postulation. Okay, this is Drishtarthapatti. Shrutarthapatti, this is another, which is not said here. You knock the door. We have said this in different places. You knock the door. The lady of the house, she opens. The wife opens the house. You ask your husband, he's gone, long gone. He's gone means you don't think, oh, he's dead. When did he die? You don't ask him. Because you also see the Mangala, whatever is auspicious form. The flower, the bindi, etc. or the ring, etc. You infer, okay, he is not dead. Or you just saw him early and you know from the astrologer that he will not die, etc. early, whatever. So this is Shrutarthapatti. Okay, now, sixth pramana. 9. Anupalabdhi pramanam. Anupalabdhi pramanam. Absence. Absence is also a means of right knowledge. So he says, Purva Mimasaka, who accepts this? Purva Mimasaka Bhattaha Sashtim Anupalabdim Pramanatwena Anupalabdam Pramanatwena Angikriti. The Bhatta school, Kumarila Bhatta, I said in the previous postulation, his disciple accepted the postulation. Here, Kumarila Bhatta not just accepts postulation, he also accepts Anupalabdi, absence. Kumarila Bhatta accepts absence also as a pramana. But what about Vedantins? What do we accept? He says, Vedanti birapi shat pramanani eva angikriyante. We Vedantins also accept these 6 pramanas. Like the Bhatta schools accept, we also accept 6 pramana. This is the reason there is a adage. What is that? Vyavahare bhattanayaha. In the worldly application, in the worldly existence, we follow the school of Bhatta. Whatever they accept as pramana, we also accept as pramana. So, in the transactional reality, we follow the Bhatta school. Grihadi, Achikaraneshu. What is this? What is this absence? Pramana. How can absence be pramana? How can non-existence be pramana? Existence can be means of right knowledge. How can non-existence be means of right knowledge? For that he says, Grihadi Adhikaraneshu Ghatadehe Abhavajnanu Anulabdehe Pramanatva Abhyavagame Prayojanam. In the house, etc., on the table, there is absence of pot. When I say there is absence of pot, do you see the pot absence? When I say there is absence of pot on the floor, do you see the absence of pot? See, in the drawing, the rule is if something exists, they will give a continuous line. If something does not exist, then they will give a jotted lines. So, I say there is absence of pot. Do you see the outline, jotted outline of the pot? No. You don't see the pot, you see only the floor. You see the floor, but if you see the floor, how did you understand there is absence of pot? You didn't see the pot. You should say, I see only the floor, I don't see the absence of pot. But you say, I see the absence of pot. Because you don't see the pot, you see only the floor. So, this does not happen if you don't accept the absence, non-existence as pramana. So, yasya padarthasya pratidhi na bhavati tat padartha visheka bhavajnanam jayate. Whatever is not perceived, the absence of that, the knowledge of absence of that object is gained through this pramana. Asya apratitehe anuplabdhiriti sanya. This non-perception is what is accepted as a non-existence. Gatadehe apratidya gatadehe abhava nischyo jayate. Because the pot etc. is not perceived, we understand, we determine the absence of pot. Itham padartha pratiyogika abhava nischayam prati karanibhuta padartha apratitihi eva anuplabdhi pramanam ityuchate. Padartha pratiyogika. Pratiyogi means there are 2 words. We keep repeating this again, and this is logical usage. Pratiyogi, anuyogi. Yasya abhavaha sa pratiyogi. Yasmin abhavaha sa anuyogi. Pratiyogi means the object of absence. The object of absence is called as pratiyogi. So, he says, whatever object of absence, that absence, if it is established, the object of absence, if it is established, the cause for establishing that object of absence is a absence or non-existence. Anuplabdhi pramana. Okay. 210. Pramana pramayoho lakshanam. What is pramana and what is prama? The definition for pramana and prama is explained, because without a definition, nothing can be established. They have a usage, a maximum, the logic. Mana jina meya siddhi mana siddhischa lakshanat. Or na pratigya matrena vastu siddhi. Vastu siddhischa lakshana pramanabhyam. Just because I say pratigya, I declare. Just because I declare, the object cannot be established. Just because someone declares, the object cannot be established. Then how can we establish the object? Only through the definition and the means of right knowledge. So we saw the 6 means of right knowledge. To establish the existence of that means of right knowledge, we have to understand the definition of that means of right knowledge. Each of these means of right knowledge should also have definition. And in fact, the definition should also have a definition. Otherwise, definition cannot be established. So definition needs to be defined. Then using that definition, you have to define the means of right knowledge. Using this means of right knowledge, you have to see the object. Lakshana, pramana, prameya. Lakshana, definition. Pramana, means of right knowledge. Prameya, object of knowledge. Because of which prama, the knowledge takes place. Lakshana, definition. Pramana, means of right knowledge. Prameya, object of knowledge. Prama, knowledge. This is the sequence. So he says, what is the definition for this? Prama rupa jnanakaranam pramanam. That which is the instrumental, which is means for the right knowledge, is what is called as pramana. See, you have to be very clear. Pramana should not be just defined as means of knowledge. Don't do this mistake, because you think means of knowledge, it is knowledge we are talking about. No, knowledge is of two types, right knowledge and wrong knowledge. Erroneous knowledge is also knowledge. Erroneous knowledge is also knowledge. So the definition should not go there. That is why the definition should be very perfect. If you miss the definition, you can't apply it. So what is pramana? Means of right knowledge. That is what is said here. Okay. Means of wrong knowledge is called as brahma. This is called as prama, and that is called as brahma. Erroneous knowledge is called as brahma, bhranti. Okay. Now, smriti bhinnatve sati abaditartha vishekam jnanam. What is right knowledge? Okay, first, what is pramana is established. Means of right knowledge is prama. That is defined. Okay, but what is right knowledge? What is right knowledge? That is defined here. Smriti bhinnatve sati abaditartha vishekam. It should be different from memory, recollection. At the same time, it should not be negated later. It should be different from memory. At the same time, it should come in negative. Simply put, we'll just say abaditartha vishekam. Abaditartha vishekam jnanam pramanam. That which is not negated later is the right knowledge. That is simply the definition. We are saying smriti bhinna, different from memory, because we don't accept memory to be prama, pratyaksha, right knowledge. We call it paroksha, immediate knowledge. We already established that. That is why he says different from memory, recollection, that which is not negated later. What do I mean? We see the mother of pearl. We see it as silver. And later when you gain the right knowledge that it is mother of pearl, you dismiss that it is not silver. Later it is dismissed. That which is dismissed later cannot be right knowledge. You see the rope or the snake. Later, when you understand the substratum, it is rope, then you dismiss that it is not snake. Since that gets removed, it is not right knowledge. You see the world. In the deep sleep, no, I'm not even talking about realization. We can't explain that. In the deep sleep, you don't see this. It gets negated. We are not even talking about realization. In sleep or in a dream state, this world does not exist. That itself is good enough to establish that this world does not exist. So, since it is negated, it is not prama, it is not right knowledge. So, whatever is negated at a later point of time is not right knowledge. Whatever is negated at a later point of time is a wrong knowledge, erroneous knowledge. Okay, so smriti rupam jnanam na prama. Memory, recollection is not accepted to be right knowledge. Prama jnanam hi pramataram ashrayati. Smrtistu na pramataram ashirtaha. Kintu sakshi prama. See, this is some roundabout way to establish why memory is not accepted to be direct perception as a right knowledge. So since he already established, he already said smrti is a recollection. Recollection is not a direct perception. He is going on beating around the bush to establish that. Why we don't accept memory to be right knowledge? Why is that? Prama jnanam hi pramataram ashrayati. What is right knowledge? Right knowledge is that which is dependent upon the knower. Knowledge is something which is dependent upon the knower. It's based on the knower. Memory, recollection, smriti is not dependent upon the knower. Then what is it dependent upon? He says, smrtistu pramataram nashitaha kintu sakshinamashita ityabhyamyate. We accept it to be based on, dependent on the sakshi. Sakshi here is avidya vritti avachinna chaitanya, not that sakshi, the self. Here it is avidya vritti avachinna chaitanya, the thought function of ignorance associated consciousness is sakshi here. So tathaiva bhranti jnana samshaya jnane cha sakshi ashrita iti angirte. Similarly, the erroneous knowledge and the doubtful knowledge, they are also not based on the knower. They are based on the sakshi. Okay. Ataeva smriti bhranti. That is why we accept memory to be erroneous knowledge. Samshayascha iti atra smriti bhranti samshayascha iti traimapi chidabhasa sahita avidyaya vritti rupam. That is why memory, erroneous knowledge and doubt, all these three are not based on the knower, but it is based on the sakshi. What is sakshi? To remove that doubt, he says, chidabhasa sahita avidyaya vritti rupam. Thought function, vritti rupam, of the form of thought function, of what? Not of the mind, avidyaya, of the ignorance. Thought function of ignorance, associated, sahita, associated chidabhasa, reflection of consciousness. Simply put, thought function associated with consciousness. Thought function of ignorance associated with consciousness. Reflection of consciousness, chidabhasa is consciousness. Okay? Reflection or consciousness, it's all same here now. So, avidya, vritti, avachinna, chaitanya. Thought function of ignorance associated consciousness is sakshi. And that sakshi is what? Which perceives a memory, erroneous knowledge, as well as doubt. Not the knower. So, यद् एव antakaranasya vrittirupam jnanam tadeva pramatanam ashrayati. Whatever, what is that which is based on the pramata, the knower, that he established. Whatever is a thought function of mind, thought function of ignorance, that is a not direct perception, but a thought function of mind is direct perception. Thought function of mind in the form of a, we are just accepting the mind as a cause and effect thought state. Okay, saying with that we say, see, or we can just say that which the thought function associated consciousness. Simple. Thought function associated consciousness. Instead of thought function associated with ignorance, associated consciousness, we can say thought function associated consciousness or mind associated consciousness. So that knowledge is what is a dependent upon the knower. Thought function is what is dependent upon the knower. Thought function of the mind is dependent upon the knower. Thought function of ignorance is not dependent upon the knower. I don't even know what happens in the dream. That is why the next day morning when I wake up, I vaguely remember my dream. In the dream, I vividly remember. I want to write it down. Beautiful story this is. But once I wake up, I don't remember anything. Why? Because that is not a product of mind. That is a product of ignorance. So, antakarana vrittirupam jnanameva prama iti uchyate. What is prama? The knowledge, that which is a product of a thought function of mind, is what is prama. What is right knowledge? Knowledge which is produced by the thought function is right knowledge. Antakarana vritti rupatva abhavadeva na smritihi pramataram ashrayati. Pramapi na sa bhavati. Since the memory, recollection is not dependent upon the mind produced or mind transformed thought function, it is not right knowledge. Since it is not right knowledge, it is not dependent upon the knower. Understand? Says the memory is not produced by thought function of mind. If the memory is produced by thought function of mind, it is right knowledge. Since the memory is not produced by the thought function of mind, it cannot be right knowledge. Since it is not right knowledge, it is not dependent upon the pramata, the knower, it cannot be right knowledge. See, whatever is dependent upon the mind produced thought function is dependent upon the knower. And whatever is dependent upon the knower is right knowledge. Simple. Thought function of mind means it is dependent upon the knower, means it is right knowledge. Thought function of knower, thought function of mind means dependent upon knower, means right knowledge. Not a thought function of mind, thought function of ignorance means not dependent upon the knower, means it is not right knowledge. It can be either erroneous knowledge, doubtful knowledge, or anything, even memory. So, ata eva smrti bhinnatvam pramalakshane deyam. That is why we have to add the word different from memory. Because memory is not dependent upon the knower. Therefore, it is not right knowledge. Therefore, it cannot be added in the definition of pramana. Okay? Smrtehe abaditartha vishay jnanatve api na smrti bhinnatvam. See, I experienced what? This is a very important thing. Why we are beating around the bush with respect to memory? Pot. Okay. Now, remember pot. Yes. I remember pot. What is that memory based upon? Memory is based upon prior experience. Memory is based upon prior experience. Right? Take it slowly. Memory is based upon prior experience. Now you remember pot. Can I negate the pot as non-real later at some point of time? Can you negate it? Can you negate it? It is gained through the right knowledge. I saw the pot. I can never negate it. The knowledge of pot, the memory of pot is gained through the knowledge of pot. I can never negate it. Whatever is remembered is because you have experienced prior. Whatever is remembered should have been experienced before. Since I remember this pot, which cannot be negated, go to the first line in this whole discussion, the definition of right knowledge. We said different from prama, that which is not negated at a later point. Smriti cannot be negated at later point because it is experienced through your sense organs. It cannot be negated. So that clause is fitting in Smriti also. That clause is applicable in Smriti also. That which cannot be negated at later point. But it is not based on the knower. Memory is not based on the knower, but it is based on the thought function of ignorance. Therefore, we are not including it in pramana, the right knowledge. Okay? Tasmad abaditartha vishekam smrti bhinnam eva jnanam prama iti uchyate. Therefore, that which is different from memory, that which is not negated at all point of time, at any point of time later, is what is called as right knowledge. We have to take out the smrti because smrti is also not negated later. Memory is also not negated later because memory is gained from the direct perception. Memory is a product of direct perception. Whatever you experience, you remember that later. Therefore, it cannot be negated at a later point of time because it is your experience. How can I negate it? It is my experience. I saw it. You say this. Therefore, it cannot be negated. But it is not right knowledge. Why? It is not dependent upon the knower. Then where is it dependent upon? It is dependent upon the sakshi. What is sakshi here? Not the consciousness, not the self. Sakshi here is avidya vritti avachina chaitanya, the consciousness associated, thought function associated with the ignorance, associated consciousness. Okay? So, nasmin lakshane dosha gandhopi asti. When you define it in this form, that which is different from the memory, at the same time, which is not negated later, is right knowledge. When I say this, there is no iota of defect. When you don't separate the smrti, then there is defect. That which is different from that, which being different from memory, if I don't say that, then there is a defect because memory is not right knowledge. Though it is not negated at any point of time later, it is not right knowledge because it is not dependent upon the knower. Memory is dependent upon the sakshi. What are the other things like memory that is dependent upon sakshi? Erroneous knowledge, doubt. Memory, erroneous knowledge, doubt. These are dependent upon sakshi, not the knower. So, they cannot be, though it need not be negated later, they cannot be right knowledge, accepted as right knowledge. That is the difference. Okay, we'll see this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.